That show in the 90s was letting people know, like, hey, we can all get along and we should embrace the indifferences of each other.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Popcorn and Soda podcast. I'm your host, Halal, and this is the podcast where we talk all things movies, pop culture, and so much more. I want to thank each and every one of you for making me a small part of your day. On today's show, we are privileged to be joined by someone who's been part of one of the biggest pop culture phenomenons of all time, the mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the original Blue Ranger. Actor, producer, but most importantly, man of the people, David Yost. David, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for such a nice introduction. I appreciate that.
Oh, no, the pleasure is all ours, David. Before we begin, how have you been the last 6 months? I know you've been living in this crazy world right now. What have you been up to?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's a huge adjustment for everybody to learn to live a different way while we navigate our way, I guess, through this pandemic. And I imagine it's different for a lot of people depending on where you live. But I live in Los Angeles, which is a very large city, and we have been one of the big hot spots in the United States. So, it's been quite an adjustment. Mostly staying in my house and not venturing out unless I really have to. And, we've lifted certain orders where we can kind of go out and do more things, but I'm still very cautious when I'm out there doing that. Always wearing my mask, always having hand sanitizer with me and washing my hands and trying to stay away from people as much as possible. So, I mean, that's not always fun, especially as a person that's one of the original Power Rangers. That
Right.
part of my life is going out to Comic Cons and getting to meet people and hug people and hear people's amazing stories about Power Rangers. So, that's been kind of sad that we don't get to have that connection, or at least I don't get to have that connection with so many of the fans of Power Rangers.
Well, hey, congratulations on the Los Angeles Lakers winning the chip. At least there's some positivity coming out of all this craziness that we're living in.
That is true.
That is true. Well, hey, let's dive right in. I personally have always been more fascinated by the people behind the character. I want to get to know more about David.
Okay.
What were your early childhood influences, and what made you want to be an actor?
I mean, those are great questions. I always get really stumped, and I always tell myself I really need to sit down and figure this part out. But I don't know that I really had like influences. Like I can't look to an actor and or a role that I saw somebody do and say, oh, that's what I want to do, or I want to be an actor like that person. So I don't know necessarily who an influence would be per se, other than my parents, just teaching me to be the best kind of person possible. So that's an influence. But in terms of really wanting to be an actor, for me, it all started when I was 7 years old. And I was lucky enough to be cast in the second grade talent show for my whole school. And I got to play Dopey in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And so, I just, at the very end of our little production that we were doing, I was left on stage by myself, singing by myself, sort of acting like Dopey, really goofy. And, they did the old, I don't know, vaudeville type of thing where they brought a big cane and they pulled me off the stage. But during that whole thing, my entire school was laughing. They were having a good time, and they were just, they were laughing at what I was doing. And I can just remember in that moment going, oh, wow, this is really what I want to do. I really enjoy that. I like making people laugh. So, that just kind of was one of those aha moments for me. And from that point on, I always did everything I could to try to be in every school play production from then all the way through college. So that's kind of how it started. And I just never gave up on the dream. And I was a gymnast as well. I was a really
Mm-hmm.
good gymnast, and my parents would spend thousands and thousands of dollars to send me to private gymnastics training every month. And you know, because my mom was a working mom and my dad was his job often had him traveling, I
Right.
would often have to, after I got out of school, I would get on a city bus and I would take the bus to downtown, and I was supposed to be going to gymnastics practice, but I would always keep my ears and eyes out for these touring companies that would come through and put on productions in the city, and often they would cast smaller roles with locals. And so I would always skip gymnastics, and I would go do those auditions, and off a couple times I got roles, and so I would be going to rehearsal for the play, and my parents would think I would be going to rehearsal for gymnastics. So they weren't necessarily happy with me all the time when I would get the lecture about, do you know how
Of
much money
course.
we spend to put you through gymnastics, and you're not even going, and I can remember in one of the productions it was Cinderella and I got cast as a dog, and so basically they're like, you're a dog, you're barking, that's all you're doing, and so it was just kind of funny, but that's really where my heart was always at, was in acting. So I just kind of always kept with it since I was 7 years old.
Well, that's a beautiful story. And one thing that I've heard, and just being in this medium, a lot of actors have that story. They all are either doing something that, in your case, gymnastics, what I'm sure you enjoyed, but your heart was truly in acting, and you still went after that dream, even at a very young age. And that's something that's very commendable. And I'm sure some of the life lessons that you learned at such a young age by just having to take the bus or having that dream, I'm sure it definitely just it shaped you as to the man who you are today, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it certainly made me very independent from a young age, just because of the situations that I was in, like saying, here I am, I don't know, 11, 12-year-old kid
Right.
getting on a city bus and riding the bus by myself and going downtown and having to walk multiple blocks and crisscross and do this, that, and switch buses and all that. So that really made me feel independent and I guess courageous in a lot of ways. Like I didn't have a lot of fear. And so I
Hmm.
think that really helped me. And at the same time, I was extremely naive about so many things. Even when I
Yeah.
moved to Los Angeles to be an actor, I was so naive, but my naivete often worked in my favor
Yeah.
because, I just, it allowed me, even though I wasn't fearful, maybe when I should have been, it just allowed me to kind of walk around a little bit more confident
Of course.
than maybe I should have been as well. I don't know.
Hey, well, you know what? Sometimes trial by fire, right? You just gotta believe in yourself, and sometimes other people may not, and that's just a very good mindset to have.
For sure.
So I want to transition over to what I believe is literally one of the greatest pop culture phenomenons of all time. This is something certainly for me and my three brothers growing up as a kid in the 90s. That was literally like the highlight of like when you're so young, it's like the highlight of your day. Power Rangers is on, or we get the new Power Rangers toy. Like there's something so universal about this show and something about the original cast, especially. Just listening to that opening theme, how addictive it was. That show is literally the very first form of media I ever watched. Like the first TV show I ever remember. What was it
Wow.
like shooting the very first season? And did you guys know you guys had something special on hand?
Um, but I mean, the first season was so much fun, and it was such a learning curve for the entire original cast.
Yeah.
For the most part, we had gone through so much together. Like Walter, Austin, Amy Jo, and myself, we were all cast. We went through the whole audition process together, and so during that process, and there was another girl playing the Yellow Ranger at that time, but at that time, for whatever reason, the five of us were, I don't know, we just kind of clicked, but we really
Mm-hmm.
took the extra time to, when we were auditioning, even if it wasn't a day that we were auditioning, we would find ways to connect and come together, meet for lunch, go over our lines, and just really make sure that we give it our all so that when we actually got as far as we did, uh, we were friends. And I think our chemistry really came across so much I think because of, I don't know how to explain it, but there was three casts actually
Right.
at the end of the day. There was three different casts, and I felt like we were the only cast that was really taking the time to spend with each other and really
Mm-hmm.
commit. And I think just the five of us wanted it so bad. So that was the first thing that I noticed about our cast, and it really helped our chemistry so that when we went to network, as they say, and we were up against these other two casts, our cast just really, we shined. And I could see like all the different people from the Fox network and from Saban, all the different producers. Like when we came into the room, they all just lit up because we just felt so organic together. So
Mm-hmm.
I love that aspect of it. And then when we shot the first pilot, we found out that we were going to get picked up for 40 episodes. So when we heard that, we're like, oh my God, that's unheard of. That's great.
Of course,
So
yeah.
we got picked up for 40 episodes. They replaced the Yellow Ranger with Twee Trang, who became the Yellow Ranger, and then also Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger. He was cast, and so in January of 1993, we started rehearsing before we started filming, and so the six of us all worked together, even though Jason didn't come into the show until I don't know 13 or 14 episodes
Right.
in,
Yeah.
but Jason was there and he really helped Amy Jo and I with our martial arts because Amy Jo and I were gymnasts and
Mm-hmm.
everybody else sort of had a martial arts background, and so Jason really helped us, and we connected with him too, and he and Twee actually, I just felt like once they came in, the chemistry was even stronger for the six of us. So we shot the entire first season, almost all 40 episodes. I'd say we shot 35 of the 40 episodes before the show even started airing. So we didn't have a real gauge as to how it was going to go. We were
Right.
just all excited that here we are, we're filming a series, and we're just, it was just nonstop work for a good solid 7 months. And the first show aired, I think it was August 30th of 1993, and we immediately shot to number one.
Yeah.
So, and then that whole aspect of it is like a whole nother a whole nother thing. Like then we start becoming famous, and we're trying to navigate that because we're out in the world and we're shopping and we see people staring at us, and we see parents. If you were out with your
uh,
parents and you saw us, your parents would have pushed you at us and say, take a picture with him, or ask for his autograph or talk to him. So we started experiencing all those kind of fun things, but at the same time, as an actor, you're trying to figure out, well, what does this really mean? And so it was a lot of fun. But and again, then once we aired and we went to number one, Fox immediately ordered another 20 episodes. So and it was just nonstop work, which was great. And we would get little highlights here and there from producers. They would come in and say, "You guys, you're number one not only in the United States, now you're number one in this country, and you're number one in that country."
mm-hmm.
And eventually, they're like, "You're airing in 73 different countries," and it's just like, wow. And
Yeah.
it's hard to put the global phenomenon on it. I can remember I had gone to the UK, to England actually, and was doing some press over there. But I didn't really think walking down the street in England,
Right. Of
people would
course.
really, recognize me. So that was
Yeah.
just interesting to be in other parts of the world and people are like, oh my God, you're Billy. So it was really cool, and all of us really so grateful at this point, like looking back, and it's just been a very humbling experience. I hope that
Right.
answered your
Oh,
question. I don't.
that was a perfect answer. And one thing that's so relatable is you never know how to prepare for fame or just not being able to just walk down the street and just like how you normally would and not maybe be approached by someone. Now all of a sudden the show comes out and it just blows up. Like,
Right.
did you find it difficult just to even adjust to that? Or is it still something today that you find still a little crazy?
I mean, you certainly, it's an adjustment for sure,
Yeah.
because you definitely lose your privacy, and and people, you just don't know when people are watching, and
The,
you don't know, you don't know when people, sometimes people would stare at me and I would think like, sometimes you forget you're on TV and I'm like, what, do I have something on my face? Did I sit in something? Why are they staring at me? And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm on TV. And then, but
Right.
sometimes, I think people are, sometimes I think people are going to ask me to take a photo and they're like, no, I don't even know who you are, dude. What are you talking about? So, it's definitely a learning curve, and it is something difficult at times to navigate. And as time goes on, I think you learn to deal with it. There's days when you're sick and you just don't feel good, and people are like,
Yeah.
"Please, can I take a picture?" And it's like it's not that
It's
I
the
don't
human
necessarily
aspect,
want to.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not that I necessarily don't want to take a picture, but I hate seeing the pictures when I'm sick and they get online, and for whatever reason, people always pick. Sometimes they pick the worst picture I've taken and they use that, and I see it in interviews and magazines, and I'm like, why out of all the pictures you could choose do you choose that picture? So just little things like that. But overall, I mean, becoming famous and losing your privacy is certainly something that you have to say to yourself, well, I'm willing to do that if this is the business that I want to be in. It's just part of the territory.
Of course, yeah. Personally, being a person of color, one of the things that stood out to me the most growing up watching the show is the diversity and representation that you see on this show. And as you mentioned, like the five of you, like it just felt like so organic and you guys were genuinely friends. And it played off like that on TV. Talk about the importance of the diversity and representation of this show because, especially for kids watching that, those things really stick with you and it just greatly just makes you enjoy it even more.
Yeah, I mean that I can honestly say like that is probably one of the biggest things looking back at the show, and here we are in 1993 back then, having such a diverse cast,
Yeah.
and really I felt like a lot of kids got to be represented when maybe they weren't represented before.
Hmm.
So, I love that Walter Jones was, obviously African American. He was a black superhero, probably like one of the first black superheroes that
Oh,
kids
of
could look
course.
up
Yeah.
to, and so that's amazing. And then Twee, as she's Vietnamese, and she has an incredible story coming from Vietnam. She was a refugee, and she came to the United States with her family, and just her life is amazing. And so
Hmm.
for Asian kids, just knowing that they had somebody that they could look up to, and to see a female superhero, her and Amy Jo, these women that could just hold their own against the men was amazing. And then, I'm a nerd, and so not my character, Billy was the nerd. And so, a lot of kids that wore glasses or got picked on or felt left out, I obviously as time has gone on, I've just heard so many stories about how Billy gave them confidence, and because Billy had friends, I went out and I made friends, or because Billy wasn't great at martial arts, but he was taking lessons, it encouraged me to go take lessons in
Right.
martial arts. So that is probably one of the greatest things about the show that I don't know that we necessarily could have predicted or really even thought about. Like even though I will say, when I grew up, I lived in places like Montana and
Right.
Iowa, where there isn't a lot of diversity, period, just
Right.
a lot of white people. So,
Hmm.
even for me, it never felt, I don't know, it just always felt organic. So
Right. No,
it's
yeah, for
like,
sure.
and I guess I get so frustrated sometimes in the world because it's just like I don't understand where the racism comes from sometimes, and
Hmm.
it's really a huge frustration of mine. So if anything, that show in the 90s was letting people know, like, hey, we can all get along, and we should embrace the indifferences of each other because it makes us better, uh, more rich people on so many levels. So I really am grateful for that. With all the behind the scenes things that went on for all of us, that was like, I don't know, a saving grace about that show.
Right. And it's we're gearing up to the 30th anniversary of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. It's crazy to believe that in a world today where we're so with social media, we're so connected, yet we're still having conversations about lack of representation and diversity in this medium. Here's the show 30 years ago almost that was truly embraced. It's okay to be different. We're all different, but we're all in it together. And that's one of the biggest lessons I learned from the show.
Yep.
So I'm going to transition over to the Power Rangers movie. Like, again, that's
Okay.
the very first movie I ever watched, like growing up, the very first. And that skydiving scene till this day, like the Red Hot Chili Peppers playing in the back, my brothers and I running around in the yard, my mom yelling at us, saying to come back in, just pretending we're jumping off a plane. What
Oh
are
my
some of
God.
your what are some of your fondest memories from being on the set of the movie?
Well, I mean, I will say it was exciting in a lot of ways because we were all young, and we got to go to a foreign country. We flew to Australia,
Yep.
which is a big 14-hour flight from Los Angeles, and we were supposed to spend 3 months filming the movie, but it ended up being 6 months over there, basically. So, it was exciting because we were in a different
Course.
country, and we're filming a movie with 20th Century Fox, which at the time was one of the big studios that did
Right.
films. And
Mhm.
so, it was just really exciting. And we got to work with producers that went on to do Titanic and
Yeah.
Avatar, and like the Austin Powers movies. So we worked with some really amazing producers. And so that was all very exciting. But that being said, it was a lot of hard work, especially
Mhm.
when you're one of the lead actors. You're basically in almost every scene, so you're going to be working every day, and and it's not like short days. It's 12 to 15
Long
hour
hard days.
days.
Yeah, of course.
And we were in Australia. It was summertime there, even like from October through March, basically. And so it was hot,
Oh, I bet.
and it was just, I don't know, it was intense in a lot of ways. And because the movie went over, instead of 3 months, we went into 6 months. They started making
Mhm.
us film the TV show at the same time as filming the
Okay.
movie.
Gotcha.
So that's when it became really, I think, taxing and stressful for the
Yeah.
majority of the cast. So we were filming the movie and the TV show at the same time. Plus, we have to do our voiceovers, what we call ADR,
ADR, yep.
from
Mhm.
all the previous episodes that we had filmed that they're gearing up to start airing in the United States. So, I mean, there was one point in there where we worked 21 days straight with no days off, period. The
Wow.
main cast. So
Mhm.
that was tough, but I don't want to take away from your enjoyment of the skydiving scene and all that. I
Well,
mean, that's a common thing. We get so many questions about, like, hey, did you guys really skydive,
uh,
and all that. And I always hate to really ruin people's shatter, I guess, people's dreams about that. But it's really an art, how we filmed it, and we didn't actually get to jump out of a plane. Those were
no.
stunt doubles that were doing that.
Mm.
But we were in a plane at the beginning of that scene where you see us jumping out.
Yep.
They had a small little body of a plane hanging in a giant hangar with a green screen behind it, and then we would jump maybe 3 feet down onto a big mat.
Mhm.
So that was that, and then they'd hook us up on wires in front of a green screen and fly us around with a camera in front of us, and we would act like we're skydiving. And then when you see us landing in the park, they had like a big crane. Again, they'd hook us up to wires and they'd pull us way, way up into the sky on this crane, and then they'd release it, and we would float in and land. So, there was just so many elements that went into
Of
that
course.
that that scene that so many people are like, "Oh my God, that's so amazing!" But I always feel bad because I have to say, no, we didn't really jump out of a plane, and we didn't get to. We aren't that good.
Well,
Uh,
well, for anyone listening who loves that skydiving scene, just feel free to forward this part and just hold on to the memory of David Yost jumping out of an airplane. That's awesome. On the last subject of Power Rangers, I have to ask, and I know this is a common thread in a lot of your Instagram lives. Would you ever be up for a reunion?
Well, I mean, of course, and I have been speaking about it I
Yeah.
think, I don't want to say extensively, but I've certainly voiced my opinion about it. I feel like they really missed a great opportunity at our 25-year anniversary.
Hmm.
Um, and we're coming up at our 30-year anniversary, and if there's going to be a reunion, I think it has to be at our 30-year anniversary, because after that we start becoming really old.
Oh, no, no. For anyone listening today, if you go on David Yost's Instagram, you can see that he has found a fountain of youth. So I wouldn't worry about that, David, but I totally get the anniversary. It's just those numbers, those 25, 10, 30. There's something
Yeah.
special about those. And fans, we're on board.
Yeah, I mean, I get so many requests from fans, and I really I would want Hasbro to really spend some time making it decent and not making it cheesy, and just really giving fans something that will make them feel nostalgic about their childhood, but at the same time give them an exciting new sort of action oriented,
Right.
maybe
The
dramatic,
evolution of the show. Yeah.
yeah, more dramatic, more dark, but yet have some of the quirkiness here and there added in. I would love it, and I would love it to be a limited series for a Netflix or a Hulu or Amazon Prime
Yeah,
Video,
that'd be
whatever it's
great.
called. So, I've been working on writing the what I would like to see, anyways, and I feel
Hmm.
like I've come up with some really good plot twists, as we say, for the characters. Some of the
Okay.
characters where I
Yeah.
think fans would be like, "Wow, I wouldn't have thought that or expected that." So, and just giving them the characters a lot more depth and dimension than maybe what you saw when you were a kid.
Hey, that sounds like a great idea. Netflix editors and Netflix distributors, we're ready. The people are ready. Let's get the ball rolling. I want to transition into more about David Yost. David, what would you say is your all-time favorite movie? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but what's a movie or two that just pops into your mind that you can just watch over and over again?
Okay. Uh, I'll start with my all time is a movie called Terms of Endearment,
Oh, okay,
which
yeah.
was back from the 80s, and it starred Shirley MacLaine and Danny DeVito's in there and Deborah Winger. And I mean, it's a 3-hour movie, but it is, I don't know. The performances are amazing from the actors, and every time I watch it, I cry. And I've seen it at least 100 times, if not more. So that is my all-time favorite movie. But as of late, more recently, but not. It's kind of been a while now. But Kingsman,
Oh, it's a
I
great movie.
it's like my more recent favorite movie. I mean, I can watch that movie. Oh, I've watched that at least 20. I would
Oh,
say
of
at least
course.
20 times.
Just the style of
And
that movie is just amazing.
yeah, it's great, and I love that movie. So that's one that's more up to date. But those would be my top two.
Oh, that's great. We're talking to David Yost, everyone, acclaimed actor from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, producer, and he's got his own, is it a apparel company, correct?
Sure, yes.
I also mentioned that you're a man of the people, and what I meant by that truly is you are so approachable on your social media platforms. It's a lot of actors, a lot of them just go to work and then they just cut it out. And that's fair. You have the right to do that. But with you, you genuinely interact with your fans on your Instagram, your Twitter, and now especially with a platform like Cameo, they can directly speak to you. Why do you think it's so important for you especially to have that connection with the fans?
That's a good question. I don't know that I've ever thought, why is this important to me? But I mean, I because what I say is that, without the fans, without the people that are listening to your show, I would not be who I am. So I feel like I am indebted. I'm indebted to you guys. So it really means a lot to me to hear the stories about Power Rangers and how it had such this amazing impact on people's lives. And, Power Rangers, for whatever reason, has given me a great life. And so, in terms of the success of the show and in terms of the fact that the fandom has continued, here we are almost 30 years later.
Yeah.
That's insane. There isn't a lot of TV shows that can claim something that iconic. So, for me, it's extremely humbling, and I am so honored. And so I feel like, I am indebted to you. And so I really want to make sure that I give you guys your fair time. And I'm so appreciative of the fans of Power Rangers. So I just really want to answer as many questions for them as I can. I want to say hi to them. If I meet people at Comic Cons, I really genuinely try to take time to really at least make them feel like, like I'm not just here and like, oh, here's my
Right.
autograph, bye, thanks. I genuinely want to know about you guys. So I don't know. It's just, again, it's something for me that feels like it's part of being a Power Ranger or being
Hmm.
somebody that represents, I don't know what I represent, but I represent something to so many kids that I guess we give people hope. And
Right.
so I want to
Of
keep
course.
giving people hope.
Well, that's the best way to put it. And as we wrap up here with David Yost, we are now entering the final act of the show. David Yost, 60 seconds, 15 questions. Are you up for the challenge?
Oh God, I guess
All right, let's
we'll
see if
find
David.
out.
Movies or TV shows?
TV,
Theater or watch at home?
theater,
One sequel better than the original?
no.
Best trilogy of all time?
Star Wars,
Favorite color besides blue?
green,
Should they reboot Back to the Future?
no.
Go-to movie theater snack?
I'm sorry, repeat it one more time.
Go-to movie theater snacks. What's the one thing you always get?
Popcorn,
Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad?
Game of Thrones,
Weirdest request you've ever had from a fan?
sign my boob.
Best sport movie of all time?
That's a good one. The Sandlot. It's not really a sport.
Favorite animated movie of all time?
Oh, God, I don't know. Pass.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
No.
Last, describe Power Rangers in one word.
Amazing.
You beat the clock. David Yost, with 1 second to go, you beat the clock.
But I passed on one question at the same
You
time.
passed on one question, so you know what? As a first-time guest on the show, we're going to give you the pass on that. So, hey, we put you to the test, and thanks for being so honest with some of your answers there. That was super great. David, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. Where can we find you online?
Well, obviously, for me, Twitter and Instagram are the two best places. Instagram is official David Yost, and on Twitter, it's David_Yost.
Perfect. David, I want to sincerely thank you from the bottom of my heart for being such a great role model for so many kids, so many teenagers, people who grew up with the show, and it does mean a lot to them. Some of the lessons that we learned from the show, things we carry till today. And thank you so much for always being such a gentleman, and thank you so much for being so kind with your time today. It's something I truly appreciate.
Well, you're very kind to say all those very nice words, and I completely appreciate you allowing me to be on your show.